Spring is calling in Newport, and there's so much happening in May. There's Bloom Newport, a family-friendly spring festival that brings color and community to town, the Newport Marathon, a crowd favorite known for its vast scenic course, and the always amazing Oregon Coast Aquarium is also expanding and opening its brand new Amazon rainforest exhibit, not to mention all the seafood you could possibly want, but just not at the aquarium. That's separate. Start planning your May getaway to the coast at discovernewport.com/spring. That's discovernewport.com/spring.
The International School of Portland is celebrating its 35th birthday this year. It's one of only 2 schools in the entire United States that has 3 full language immersion programs under one roof, teaching in Chinese, Japanese, and Spanish. It's also the first school in the Pacific Northwest to offer the renowned International Baccalaureate Primary Years program. They're now enrolling students from preschool to 5th grade for fall of 2026. Sign up for a personal tour at intlschool.org.
This is CityCast Portland. I'm Claudia Meza, and this is what Portland's talking about. Today on CityCast Portland, where we're at with ICE as a city ahead of this weekend's No Kings Day protest, a possible elegant solution for cleaning up 2 environmental disasters on the Willamette River, and why tariffs and other price hikes mean it's now a good time to explore local takes on Italian food products. Joining me are Portland Monthly Associate Editor Alex Frayne and our very own newsletter editor Rachel Monahan. Thanks for hanging out with me this morning, you guys. I'm having a lot of trouble talking. This is rough. It's a rough job. I have the toughest job on earth, clearly.
That's true.
Yeah, glad to be here.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. Thank you for the validation that you're having a good time. I think this is the first show I've hosted where you've also been a guest, Rachel, so I'm pretty excited. Maybe that's why I'm like, I can't talk.
Starstruck.
Yeah, clearly. As most of our listeners know, before we jump into the news, I always ask an opening question so anyone new can get to know our guests a little better. And today's opening question is based on some reporting by Noel Crombie from the Oregonian, where he uncovered that a Clackamas County commissioner up for re-election spent $9,200 on a custom desk after he took office in 2023. Now, this was for his office, by the way. So Commissioner Ben West's oak Amish desk and matching hutch fell within the $5,000 to $10,000 budget, which is pretty high, for furnishing county commissioners' offices. But many are finding that use of public funding for a single desk a bit distasteful, and a sampling of other elected officials' furnishing purchases show most of them use furniture already owned by the county because they were like, why would I spend public money when there's stuff here? So my question to you both is, what is your biggest home furnishing purchase regret?
I've bought so little of my own actual furniture. I feel like I've just absorbed it over the many years that I think my biggest furniture regret is not buying enough of my own actual furniture.
Aw.
I would say I have 2. Mine is, well, of course, I have a standing desk. And Claudia, maybe you've noticed how many times I have stood at my desk over 3.5 years. I mean, I think maybe there was one meeting ever that I went to so standing. But I also regret any time I've ever had to go to IKEA. I don't necessarily regret the purchase exactly, but
it's a nightmare situation.
Terrible. Yeah.
The trip itself.
I fully agree. I know people who recreationally will go. They'll just go for fun and eat some meatballs.
For the froyo and the meatballs. Wow.
Yeah, I just put my AirPods on and I just tried to barrel through as quickly as I could.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
I'm a little worried about your friends. I don't want to diagnose them on air or anything, but I'm worried.
What about the people who go for the meatballs and the recreation? This might actually be an employee of Portland Monthly.
Oh, no.
Who's to say?
Wow. Well, judgment aside, which, by the way, I love. On to the news of the week. Rachel, you've gathered a few headlines in anticipation of the No Kings protest on Saturday. Lay it on us. What's going on?
Well, so there is another No Kings rally in Portland this weekend and a few other locations across the state and the country and maybe internationally too. The local protest is supposed to bring a bunch of people to downtown. I hear we need more people downtown. And actually,
Yeah.
businesses have benefited from the protests in the past. The Oregonian estimated that in October, if you remember, there was a huge No Kings rally, and there were 40,000 people who attended, at least according to the estimates. And if you remember, October was a super tense moment in this city. President Trump was trying to send in the National Guard, and the protests then ended in protesters being at the ICE building being tear gassed by federal agents. The focus of this protest will be on the waterfront, as past rallies have been, but I'm really having a hard time imagining that this protest doesn't end in more images of tear gas outside the ICE building. And there's a development on that.
Yeah, because I thought that they were like, no more tear gas, you guys. You're banned from the tear gas.
Yeah, the update is that federal agents, again, have wider latitude to use crowd control devices like tear gas. A couple weeks back, as you were mentioning, 2 Portland-based federal judges ruled that basically agents shouldn't use tear gas unless they were afraid for their lives, and that applied only at the ICE building. But this week, the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals has put a temporary hold on those rulings.
That's interesting.
Yeah, there'll be a hearing in a couple weeks or less, and where they'll make a more, thorough determination on that. But I'm having trouble imagining this weekend doesn't go differently than the last time there was a big protest. One thing I was thinking about was whether there'd be as many people this time. October was a super tense moment with the troop deployment, or at least the threat of it. But Trump hasn't gotten more popular, at least on the economic issues.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll be talking a little bit about that
Exactly.
later. Yeah.
Well, then, Rachel, correct me if I'm wrong, but also even a few weeks ago when that bill or whatever, that prohibition against tear gas was implemented, there was a caveat that they could still use crowd control munitions if they felt like they were in danger, right? Which already seems to grant a considerable amount of latitude to these people.
Yeah, I mean, there was some question already about whether they would adhere to the restrictions to begin with, but now there aren't any of those limitations in place.
Yeah.
So I've been really enjoying a couple of stories that are out about different kinds of Portland resistance that are going on. Maxine Bernstein at the Oregonian has a story of a retired lawyer who's filed a civil suit against the Treasury over the plan for there to be a 24-karat commemorative Trump gold coin.
Commemorating what?
I know the word commemorative. Exactly. Okay, Rachel, sorry. Go on. We're already up in arms.
So something about this story feels very Portland, though I guess it could have happened anywhere that anyone could have filed this suit. This lawyer is an amateur coin collector, and he spent more than 22 years working for the federal government at the Postal Service. He spends his time now as a CrossFit coach and snowboarding and volunteering. So
He sounds awesome.
Yes.
Sorry, that's just yeah.
He sounds like he was born for this lawsuit. Like,
Yes.
as a child, someone christened, they're like, one day you are going to sue the federal government about this gold coin.
For the stupidest reason possible.
The quote for the Oregonian is, "If I can't do this as a middle-aged white guy and former federal employee, I just felt like I have a privileged voice. Why not use it?"
Yeah.
So the actual legal questions, there's an 1866 federal law that bans portraits of living people from being on our currency.
Oh, there we go.
But I guess the legal question is whether a commemorative coin is actually currency. But I guess our lawyer friend will actually find out if what our not king can have a gold coin.
Rachel, I'm sorry. I thought you were about to say, but the legal question is whether he's like legally considered to be alive or not.
Yeah, I think that's pretty settled, whether people want it to be or not.
Oh my God. A gold coin. Like there's nothing more.
I think it's perfect. It's
Yeah, well, but it's also just like what can infuriate a Trump hater even more? It's like,
yeah, I mean, the whole administration is a troll.
24 karat gold coin. Eat it, guys. Eat it. Anyhow, this Saturday, the No Kings protest. Let's take a quick break here, and when we return, how we can possibly fix 2 epic Willamette River environmental fails for the price of 1.
Spring home buying season is back in Portland. That home you're in love with, the Portland bungalow with room for garden beds in the backyard and easy access to the Max line, it's fetching multiple offers. If you are in the market anywhere in the Portland metro area and feel like your offers aren't getting accepted, talk to James Adair at Neo Home Loans powered by Better. James has spent more than 20 years helping Portland families get their offers accepted. And he's put together a list of 12 specific ways to improve your offer. He calls it the unfair buyer advantage. You don't need more offers. You need one that wins. Download his free playbook at unfairbuyeradvantage.com. That's unfairbuyeradvantage.com. James Adair, NMLS 272766 with Better Mortgage Corporation. NMLS 330511, an equal housing lender.
Hi, CityCast listeners. This is David Plotz. I'm the CEO of CityCast, but I also have another job. I'm one of the hosts of the Political Gabfest, Slate's politics podcast. Every week, I get on mic with my co-hosts Emily Bazelon and John Dickerson, and we talk about politics and a lot more about other things that we care about. The Gabfest has been going for more than 20 years because the three of us love talking to each other, and we have an amazing community of listeners. If you like the open-hearted, curious way CityCast approaches cities, I think you'll like the Political Gabfest too. Stream it on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast.
So, you guys, for over 25 years, a 10-mile stretch of the lower Willamette River between the Broadway Bridge and the southern tip of Sauvie Island. So that's a big stretch here.
That's 10 miles. Wow.
It's also known as the Portland Harbor, and it's been designated as a Superfund site by the EPA, meaning it's heavily contaminated by hazardous waste from all the various industrial going-ons that have been happening there since the turn of the century, and it poses significant risk to human health and the environment. So that's the bad news. The worst news is that since the Portland Harbor is publicly owned now, Oregonians are on the hook for a substantial portion of the cleanup cost, and the total bill is upwards of $4 billion. So that means we and the generations that follow will be paying for our part of that cleanup through taxes, water rates, and utility bills, which I know we were all recently complaining are simply not high enough. So the original plan was to send about 3 million cubic yards of contaminated sediment from the banks and the riverbed more than 100 miles away to landfills in central Oregon. But last July, Vigor Industrial, which operates a shipyard on Portland's Swan Island, and the EPA came up with a pretty brilliant idea. They're like, hey, how about instead of building a new terminal, moving dirty sediment, which is already kind of dangerous from Portland to central Oregon, we simply move the soil a few miles up to the Willamette and plug that hole in the Ross Island Lagoon. I'm seeing that little like dog turn ear up thing, because you're probably like wondering like, but it's hazardous. You can't put it back in the river. Well, hold your horses here, because there's a reason why. So the Ross Island Lagoon hole that I just mentioned is another environmental disaster brought on by gravel mining in the 1920s, which was owned by the now financially troubled Pamplin family. That hole causes frequent toxic algae blooms, which shuts down the surrounding areas on the Willamette in the summer. And Robert Pamplin Jr. has been on the hook with the state to plug that hole in for quite a while, but he doesn't have the funds to accomplish such a feat. after all of his tax and pension scam scandals. That's a separate headline. Look it up. It's a rabbit hole you'll fall into.
City's doing great.
Yeah, we're doing awesome. So the elegant solution here is that Pamplin sells Ross Island to us, the public, and we use it as a dumping ground for the non-hazardous sediment from the Portland Harbor's Superfund site, which is like 93% of all the material that needs to be moved to get to the final hazardous 7% of sediment. Does that make sense? So we take the actual gross hazardous 7% of sediment to the special landfills, but the rest can get capped. And the craziest part of this idea, you guys, is that everyone seems to be on board. The EPA, environmental activists, industry and regional leaders, including the governor. And though there are no concrete figures right now, this proposed solution will shorten the time frame significantly, will cut costs down, and we get to reclaim Ross Island as a possible nature preserve. So our public funds will go to something better than just shipping waste to Central Oregon. What do you guys think?
Yeah, it's pretty striking that the environmentalists support it, that, everybody's on board. It sounds like it'll actually happen maybe if everybody's on board.
Yeah, there's usually a naysayer, right? Like at least somebody going, think about this one specific bird,
Yeah, I'm honestly just kind of surprised there's still an EPA to even sign off on this. So.
Fair point. I'm sure they'll get around to disbanding that eventually. I'm also struck by how long people have been working on cleaning up the river. Like, I didn't notice this, and maybe this isn't the right question, but the Human Access Project and Willie Levinson, are they over the moon about this? Because they've been working on getting our river swimmable for forever.
Yeah, those are the ones that cleaned up Cathedral Park, right?
Yeah. I mean, I didn't check in with Willie about this, my river amigo, as he calls himself. But I can't imagine that they're not anything but over the moon about this. This is what they want. I mean, the whole Human Access Project, ethos is like access to the river, and we did not have access to the Superfund site for very obvious reasons. And he himself, Willie, was such a proponent of plugging that hole up. I'm not saying other people haven't helped, but he was just like spearheading that. Like it got pushed to the front of the docket because of him. So I really think that everyone's work is like coalescing, and the fact that it was actually industry leaders like, Vigor Industrial that was like, guys, have you thought about this? Is pretty cool because it wasn't our regional leaders. It's just that it's so fragmented. Like there's that Ross Island, cleanup is separate from the super harbor. You know what I'm saying? So like, it makes sense that these people were not really fully talking to each other. Imagine that when we all talk to each other, what happens?
Yeah, it kind of sounds like you're advocating that more media owners should raid their employees' pension funds in order to later have to.
I just want you to know that I have no idea how we got there.
Because that's what the Pamplin...
That's not what I said at all. But you might have a bright future ahead of yourself at Fox. And I think that... I think that's really... I mean, seriously, like, that was brilliant. Not what I said. So ultimately, Claudia loves a good pension scam, is what I'm hearing.
You have said, though,
that's what I'm... Yeah, clean up the Willamette and rob your workers. That's what I'm saying.
It's the other way around. You have to rob your workers and then get punished for it by cleaning up the river.
Oh, gotcha. Well, you guys, that was my happy, good feeling story for the for the show.
No, I think it's a remarkable solution, and I think that we're so lucky to have the Willamette River. I mean, it's such an important part of our city and our identity in our state and everything that goes back to pre-colonialism and everything. So I'm glad to see that people are taking it seriously. Yeah,
it's why we have a Portland, is the Willamette River. It's why the city is here, is that river. Yep. So it would be so awesome if not only we took care of it, but we could enjoy it.
And as someone who used to splash around in it, I definitely approve.
Yeah, and look at him now. He's doing
Look what it did to me.
He's doing great. All right, well, let's take a quick break here. And when we come back, Alex is going to tell us what's going on with all these tariffs and price hikes and how it's affecting international foods.
And then Claudia is never going to bring me back on.
Are you kidding me? All right, Alex, lay it on us. What's going on? Why can't I buy Italian tomatoes?
Well, it's probably not really the time of year for it yet.
In a can?
Oh, in a jar. Right. Yeah, sorry. Good point. Well, as people know, in the second Trump administration, one of his primary campaign promises and one of the primary elements that he's focused on is the idea of tariffs. Last year, he implemented just a flurry of tariffs throughout the year, including massive tariffs on European imports and Asian imports. There was that one day last year where it was his Liberation Day, where he puts, these massive blanket tariffs that seem to be AI generated on, dozens of different countries. Now, last November, he also promised the threat of, I believe it was up to 107% tariffs on Italian products. And that was mostly on things like pasta, olive oil, and other food products from Italy that we rely on a lot in our Portland restaurants and Italian cooking and everything like that. Now, those tariffs were almost immediately rolled back to a much smaller percentage. And then a few weeks ago, there was a meeting that essentially set them to under 10% almost across the board. So what we're looking at right now is a fairly low tariff rate on Italian products. But what we're also looking at is this massive amount of uncertainty that for the last year and a half, it's been this kind of game of Trump applies tariffs, he withdraws tariffs, or the Supreme Court blocks him on tariffs, and then he reinstitutes tariffs. It's just been this crazy, hectic back and forth that's really upended markets. And it's also upended a lot of reliability in distribution models, in import-exports. And then on top of all that, obviously, a couple of weeks ago, we struck Iran militarily, and we're already seeing a spike in oil prices. There's a lot of speculation from experts that these oil prices are not going to go down anytime soon, if at all. It's a mess, right? Well, we all know it's a huge mess. And people are looking at these massive price increases on goods, especially on goods that are being transported long distances. When diesel prices raise, you have this escalation in prices for basically everything, because even when we talk about shopping local, that still needs to be transferred from farms to distribution centers, from distribution centers to retail centers. And then, often enough, Portlanders have to pay to fill up their gas tank in order to get those home. Obviously, we have alternatives, public transit, walking, things like that. But what we're seeing here is a massive raise in prices across the board for a lot of food products. So we had this lovely freelancer who, when the initial tariffs were put in place or when they were threatened, she started gathering a resource guide for locally made products that could kind of mimic Italian style products, or not necessarily mimic, but also stand in for them in cooking. Her name is Elena Vagliotti. She is an expert in Italian cooking and Italian agriculture and culture, having lived there for a while. She's now here in Portland. So she developed this really great guide that serves kind of two purposes. One, it is an alternative to Italian products, but it's also just a celebration of the amazing bounty of food and drink that we have right here in the state. Stuff that's made as local as Portland or out to the coast and in the farms of the Willamette Valley. We really have an astounding amount of locally made food, so that even if you're not worried about shipping Italian pasta, like, you could go out to a local store or market and buy something that was made right here in town that tastes just as good, if not better, than the mass market stuff you find from Italy.
Right. I know that you said that the Italian tariffs came down since the story was written, but still, immediately I was just like, wow, we just got this boon of Italian restaurants. Like, I wonder how they're doing. Because like
Absolutely.
you said, it's not even just like the actual price. It's the threat of it. It's the access to the food. It's like the regularity of these shipments, because it affects everything, as you stated, like all the steps in between it gets to the consumer. So I'm just curious how they're doing, how anyone making international foods is doing, if they're at all, importing stuff.
Certainly. I mean, you can look at Mexican tariffs and tariffs on Chinese products and Japanese products the same way. I do think that one of the cool things about Italian restaurants here in Portland, you mentioned that we had this recent boom of Italian restaurants. I think it was roughly 500 million new Italian restaurants last year.
Mm-hmm. About, yeah.
I could be shifty on those numbers. One of them was Maglia Rosa, which is over on Division in the old Bollywood theater space. And that's a great example of an Italian restaurant that opened in the last year during all of this turmoil that is doing really well. And part of the reason for that is that they actually do make their own pasta. And a lot of Italian restaurants here in Portland, I would venture that of the higher end Italian restaurants, most of them do make their own, especially for places that are making fresh pasta. So you can go to a place like Montelupo, which makes their own bronze cut dried and fresh pastas, as well as Maglia Rosa, which makes their own pastas. And you can buy that in their marketplaces there.
And I have to say, I'm usually of the opinion that to get good Italian food, sorry, Portland restaurants, that you need to like get on a plane and go towards the East Coast. But I was remarkably impressed with Maglia Rosa, including their salads, which are superb.
Oh.
I would posit that there are some very stunning new Italian restaurants and old Italian restaurants in the city that can stand up to anything on the East Coast or even Italy. I mean, Strana has been a pillar of Italian dining in the Pacific Northwest for 20 years now. I don't want to get too far into this because we have a lot to talk about, but another really amazing product that we have here in Oregon is Durant olive oil. It's the only commercial olive oil mill in the state, and they have been dominating international olive oil competitions for years now. They come away with gold medals all of the time. And one of my favorite ways to have their product is actually with a local company called Trey Finn, a hook and line fishing company out on the coast that catches tuna. We have albacore tuna here in Oregon. It's local to the Pacific Northwest waters. And one of the most enjoyable ways to have tuna, especially as albacore tuna, is ventresca, which is the fatty belly of the tuna. Mm-hmm. And Trey Finn, which again is this line caught, which is much more sustainable, they pack theirs with Durant olive oil for this just really incredible. I was at the farmer's market the other day and I bought a jar from them, not putting together in my mind that I was editing this story about them at the time, actually. I just saw them, was like, oh, I want to get this bottle. Made a salad for myself with some like locally grown greens, here from like a farm in the Willamette Valley with the ventresca, and it was unbelievable. I mean, really, really astonishing.
Man, I'm starting to get hungry. But I do just want a quick correction. Portland Northwest Italian food is okay. That's all.
We'll see. We can.
I mean, I'm just saying. I mean, Alex can say whatever he wants. I love Nostrana, but I have eaten Italian food on the East Coast. I have eaten Italian food in other places, and I got to tell you, Northwest Italian food is very specific. It's delicious, but it's a very specific flavor.
Yeah. Have you been up to Sunday Sauce yet? I feel like that's a very like East Coast style restaurant.
No comment.
Okay.
Rachel, well, I forgot Rachel is from the East Coast. So she's been quietly, you've been describing your salad and like all of these delicious Northwest products, and she's just been seething. I need you to know. From New York. She talked about
a salad. She's a fan of a salad from a
Portland
Italian
but she's
restaurant.
just been stewing in her East Coast hate.
I was recently converted to Portland pizza, so maybe the Italian food conversion will happen as well. But yeah, I'm with Claudia generally, except Maglia Rosa opened the door a bit, I have to say, for me.
Nice.
Well, Portland has been largely considered by many experts to be the best pizza city in the United States. So
that is true.
I'm glad that you finally came over on that.
That has always felt like a troll for me until I made the sourdough crust conversion, and now I can't have anything else. I can't have anything else now.
We made a gold commemorative coin of a Portland pizza slice just for Rachel.
I feel like if you're going to be making a pizza coin, the pie would probably be better than a slice.
Okay.
Because they're the same shape.
You can't, not only that, but I thought the troll would be is that you can't really buy pizza by the slice here. So that was a bigger troll for Rachel.
That's true. We don't have a lot of slice shops. That's absolutely true. We worked on a big story about pizza, and one of the things that we found was that there are very few pizza slice shops.
Yeah, exactly. Which is, I think, the cornerstone of East Coast pizza culture is being able to grab a slice. Anyhow,
totally
this is CityCast Portland.
I should say it took a decade of being in town, but I converted. So maybe a little longer and I'll be on to the Italian restaurants.
We're glad to have you.
Again, I love Italian food here in Portland. Please don't throw spaghetti at me. I love it. Absolutely love it. And love our pizza. I actually think I'm on the pizza side here, on the Portland pizza. I'm on the Portland pizza train. Let's just put it that way. But you guys, that's our show. We did it. What am I saying? I'm like, stamp it. Send it. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. That's all for today here on CityCast Portland. Thank you for listening. Our podcast production team this week was John Atariani, Julia Fiaioni, Rachel Monahan, Jesse Wiza, Francisco Kilgore, and myself. Original music by Jenny Conley and Steven Drizos, and additional music by All the Kimonos. Our ad music is by Sven Lindvall and Sarah, the instrumentalist from Epidemic Sounds via Getty Images. We'll be back Monday morning with more from around the city. Until then, see you at Slate. Slim's or some new Italian spot, which would have been opened by Monday.